Okay, ladies and gents, we are ready to start part 3, the Tau and How of testing. And now we are officially done with all of the theory and whatever else you want to call it about testing. Now we're going to get into some nuts and bolts types of things that you and I can do to make our tests better. And so we're going to be looking at short answer and completion items beginning in this chapter. And as you can see, you got yourself 4 smiley faces right there. And as your book says, chapter 6 is very easy compared to what we've been fighting for the last few weeks. So enjoy. So, what about short answer and completion items? They're also known as supply items because the test taker is asked to supply, not select, the answer. On a lot of multiple choice tests or matching tests, you're asked to select things. And let's face it, even if you don't know the answer, you got like a 1 in 5 chance, 1 in 4 chance, or whatever the odds are for you to be able to come up with the right answer. But the test taker has to supply an answer in the fill in the blank or short answer type of test, because you just have a blank that you need to fill in there, and that kind of makes you kind of have to know the material a whole lot better in order to supply those answers that are needed. So that's the big difference here. Secondly, we can use them when we want to focus on a particular level of understanding. Alright, so let's see what they're talking about right there. We've got some lower level thinking skills here. Memorization. You know, we can memorize lists, the night before, and maybe hopefully retain them, or else cram just about an hour or so before we take the test. Or I've had students get ready to take some of my tests, and they're looking at the book and they're saying, "Dr. LeVrier, give us a few more minutes to look," and then I get to the point that it says, "Hey, it's time to take the test." It's only at that point when I tell them to put their books away that they stop trying to cram one little extra piece of information into their brains. Well, they can memorize that stuff, and then after a few days it's gone. Or you can just have some basic knowledge of stuff. If you just kind of observe or read, you can absorb some basic knowledge. But that's really lower level type of thinking right there. So what do they look like? Well, got 2 good examples right here. Chemical symbol for hydrogen is fill in the blank. Or what is the chemical symbol for hydrogen? And they would then supply the answer maybe below the question, or maybe have some type of block or some area where they will put their answer. In either case, the test taker has got to supply the response in either words, numbers, or symbols. So they need to either write out what the chemical symbol for hydrogen is, if there's some kind of numerical value there, or if there's some symbol for that answer. They need to put it in there. They've got to supply it. They can't choose it. Now, what are some guidelines that you and I can follow in order to create some fill in the blank or short answer questions. If you got a choice to do it, create short answer items rather than completion items. I guess for the reason that short answer, easier to grade. You can get it done quicker compared to completion items, which would, sometimes if you're looking for the exact answer, you may not get it. And then you've got to go out there and kind of figure out what it is the student meant by it. Also, a short answer kind of gives them an opportunity to kind of elaborate a little bit more about something. To get maybe a better understanding about what they know and what they don't know by your short answers. Avoid grammatical clues, where you kind of build into the question a way for them to come up with the answer, to kind of clue them out to exactly what the answer might be. Don't copy directly from study materials as you go through a chapter in your book or whatever it is that you're covering. Don't need to really pull out word for word some of the statements that are there. You want to put a little bit of thought and effort into this to kind of come up with a question that really gives you an opportunity to see exactly what the student knows. Place your blank at the end of the item. As they read the statement or question, their eyes are following from left to right, and so it's a whole lot easier for them to be able to just write the answer right at the end of that that sentence, because the next thing that they see is the blank. Now, that on the other hand, that may be a little problematic because of the space requirements that we have on our sheet of paper. Personally, I don't really follow this to a great extent. Usually I'll put my blanks right below it, a question, if I'm looking for a short answer. If I'm looking for just a fill in the blank, just a word or whatever it is, I will usually put it to the left of that question, because it makes it easier on me whenever I do my answer key. I just lay it across my paper and I just go down the line and mark my answers right or wrong. Now, another thing here is to specify the precision of the answer you want. Do you want something in general or do you want something specific? You can kind of build that into the question to tell the student what you want. But they ought to know exactly how deep or how much you want them to cover. Blank spaces should be equal across items. You don't want short blanks for short answers, long blanks for long answers. Make them all the same length, and so like that, whether it's one word or maybe it's 4 or 5 words, they got plenty of place to put it in there. And then write your question so that there is a single correct response. You don't want to have to spend a whole lot of time, analyzing the student's answer, whether or not to give them credit or partial credit or no credit at all for that particular answer. You just want one single correct answer. That's it. Move on to the next question. Now, what's wrong with these items? Well, Obviously, from what the text tells us, we don't want our blank right here. We'd like to kind of put it back on this end. Now, a nanometer is how wide? See how they got the blank here? Now, how wide is a nanometer? The problem right here is with the question itself. You know, you're talking about two things right there, length and width. You know, a nanometer is a measure of length. You want to scratch this out and make a nanometer is how long, because we can't really measure the width of a nanometer. Now, this one right here, obviously you got 1, 2, 3 blanks. Don't want that. One is plenty enough to have to check. And then this one right here, you know, what is the function of time? Somebody comes up with an answer right there. There's probably a Nobel Prize waiting for them. You couldn't really grade a question like that. And so, bad question. Get rid of it. Now, one of the things I like about your author's approach here on these test items, he looks at both sides of the ability for us to be able to use those particular items in a test. And let's face it, every one of them has some kind of good side to it, good point that we can utilize to our advantage, but then there are some disadvantages to everything that you're going to see over the next few chapters. And so I really like his approach to really give us an objective assessment of these particular test items. And so let's take a look at the table. It's in your book on table 6.1, but let's check out the good side of short answer and completions. They're very flexible, so you and I have got a whole lot of options available to us and what we cover and what we want our students to respond to. They minimize guessing. Students got to know what they're talking about in order to be able to answer the question correctly. So there's no eeny, meeny, miny, moe here. They have got to know what they're talking about. And so they have to really study a bit harder to be able to get that done. They also lend themselves to computational items. In grad school, I took a couple of statistics classes, and the instructor, you know, printed his test out on legal paper. And what was nice was that he gave us the question, and then we had enough space below there to work out the problem. And he said, "Show your work. Make sure that you've got that there, so I can give you partial credit on your problems." And obviously he, or maybe his grad assistant, I really don't know who graded them, but they, you know, gave us plenty of space to be able to work out those answers right there in a nice organized fashion. And so we were able to get full credit, partial credit, or in some cases no credit at all. It's a really tough course. But they are also easy to write. We don't have to do we do need to do a little bit of thought as to the content of the questions. You know, not to make them leading and things like that, but really we can write them very quickly and get the job done. And then they allow for lots of items to be used. You know, we're really not limited in the types of questions that we utilize. We can cover just about any kind of instructional material that we wish. You know, from a shop standpoint, if you want the students, especially if they're taking a safety test, list the you know, the safety rules for using a hand drill. Give me 5 rules. Well, they got to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's not like they can just pick them out of a list. They've got to write them, and hopefully they've read the safety rules. So those are great things right there to have. Now, what's the bad side? Well, they're not going to be scored too fast. It's impossible to do it. You and I have got to look at every paper, every question, and use either our answer key that's right next to it, or else look at the question itself and read every one of them. So, you know, if you're going to use this, the chances are you better give yourself some time to be able to grade the test, because it's going to take a while. Now, this one is important. Scoring can be subjective. You know, maybe, you know, I grade my tests after the Saints lose a game like, you know, 40-0, and I'm mad and I'm disgusted by all of that, and I might grade my test harder than if you know, I find out one day that we're all going to get a 2% raise, which would make me pretty euphoric right now. And so I might grade that test a whole lot different. I certainly have a better frame of mind, maybe. And so it's not like I'll be grading this with the same level of consistency. And so it can be subjective. I might like somebody's answer better than somebody else's. It's just how it is. A limited scope of cognitive skills can be assessed. You know, really what you're doing is looking at how much they were able to retain from their studies. That's about it. And last but certainly not least, a one-answer question are really tough to create. You got to put a whole lot of thought into these questions to word them just right, so that you just get one answer and one answer only. And so get prepared to be able to spend some time putting these questions together. So to summarize, short answer and completion items are easily written. Not a problem there. Might take a little time for us to put them together, but we can write them out. They get at fundamental learning outcomes. Have they memorized the content? Memorize the stuff that you want them to study. Can they retain it? But certainly they got no option to guess, because they've got to supply the answer. But on the flip side, they are hard to score. Very hard to score. You're going to be spending some time getting that done. And they are also limited to lower level thinking, just being able to retain basic facts. Not a lot of thought that's going to be going into these questions. And I guess personal example that I guess I'd like to give dealing with these types of questions, and I guess it's kind of unique because as an undergraduate Um, I went to LSU to get a degree in industrial arts education, and so I was there at the industrial arts department for a couple of years after transferring from LSU at Eunice to finish up my baccalaureate there. The head of the department at the time that I was there was Dr. James McMurray. You may have heard of Dr. McMurray because at one time LSU was in charge of delivering the OCED courses. We called them at that time VTIE, Vocational Trade and Industrial Education classes, for certification for technical college and also secondary instructors. And I was involved with that to a great extent as a grad assistant when I was doing my doctorate. But as an undergraduate, just so happened that I needed a testing course. And Dr. McMurray was teaching a OCED course, VTIE course, which was 1050, which was testing. We met one night a week on a Wednesday night for 3 hours for that course. And the book we used, I really don't know whatever happened to it. All I can remember that it was not an easy book like this one. It was a pretty thick, pretty comprehensive type of testing book, and I guess if I would dig hard enough, I might be able to find it. But nevertheless, Dr. McMurray was an outstanding professor, but we all heard, and it was common knowledge, and he told us himself, that his tests were all fill-in-the-blank tests. And I will never forget the first night that we took our first test, and he dropped about a 15-page legal size paper test on my desk, and I saw all those blanks. And ladies and gentlemen, you talk about have to scratch for some answers, because let's face it, there was no guessing, and it was a tough class, tough test, and that's he said was the reason he gave fill-in-the-blank test was for us to be able to know that material. And I can guarantee you, I was up late many nights trying to cram everything that I could into my limited brain space to be able to come up with those answers. And I'll never forget Dr. McMurray's test. And in fact, much later on, we'd share some laughs about those tests, and he kind of got a kick out of watching our responses while we would be going through the test. So, I don't know if I've never given those kinds of tests where they were all fill in the blank. I don't think I'd ever want to do that, but they are good to be able to kind of add in one or two items, 3 items, whatever it takes in a test to kind of make sure the students kind of know what they're talking about. So that will